Hi, this is Alan Liska with Green Archer Comics, and I want to continue talking about compact formats of comics that we love. Remember to like and subscribe and all of those other good things. I should get that out of the way now. So a while back, I did a video on DC compact comics and why they're successful. And in fact, V for Vendetta was just released. It looks fantastic. It's not my cup of tea because I prefer to have the full-size comics. I love the art to be able to express itself, and I think the compact comics lose that a little bit, but I'm not the target market for this. For somebody who wants to read about the original V for Vendetta for $10, it is an amazing deal. And somebody in the comments asked, and I think this is a really good question, why the DC compact comics are doing really well, but the Marvel Premier editions don't seem to be doing nearly as well. So this is Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon, which was released in the same month as V for Vendetta. So V for Vendetta was released November 5th, obviously. Remember the 5th of November. And then Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon was released later in the month of November. So they're both relatively new. As I'm recording this, less than a month old for both of them, or a month old for both of them. So why are the sales different? And the art style is the same. Not the style, but the pages are the same. The printing's the same. Again, it's not my cup of tea because I want bigger art, not smaller art. But this is, you get the whole Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon, and you get it for $14.99. So a little more expensive than the DC compact comics, but not that much more expensive. So it's somebody who's wanting to get into comics. The format is easy to manage. It fits nicely on your bookshelf. But why aren't they selling as well? And it's not me saying why aren't they selling as well. They are not selling as well. Let's take a look at the ICV charts for November for the top graphic novels. So if we look in here, we can see that the top graphic novels are basically dominated by DC and Image. If you look at the top 10, a lot of Absolute Batman, Absolute Martian Manhunter, and so on, but you do see the compact comics in there. And in terms of sales, the DC Compact Edition Volume 24, V for Vendetta, is number 4. But then you also have Batman Court of Owls, which has been out for a while. You have the Batman Long Halloween, which has also been out for a while. The All-Star Superman, also been out for a while. You can see, still Volume 4, Volume 5, the Volume 2, Volume 22, they still carry a lot of weight. So, 24 of these have been out, and still a number of these are in the top 10. When you talk about Marvel Premiere sales, the first one that appears is number 29, the Marvel Premiere Collection, number 5, Volume 5, which is Wolverine Old Man Logan. So that's all the way down at number 29. And Old Man Logan was an incredible series, and one that is, still very well thought of, but it just can't break into the top. And to find the new Hawkeye, you have to go down to number 59. Now, it's a little bit of an unfair comparison because this did come out later in the month, but you'd expect it to be much higher than number 59 for a new premiere collection, especially one, again, as well regarded as Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon. I think that was an incredible run. There are some really cool things in that book. So, while DC Compact Comics keeps their comics, keeps their, accessories and other things for their books to a minimum, Marvel did a couple things. They added an introduction from Matt Fraction in there, which I think is really nice. They've got some errata at the end about the art capability and so on. So they're trying to give a more advanced, more information. They're trying to give more stuff inside their comics for that extra $5. But honestly, it doesn't seem to be working. And the question is why? Why doesn't it work? And I think a big part of that is the price. I think $10 versus $15, which may not seem like a lot to a lot of comic collectors, is still a big deal for a casual reader. If you are somebody who doesn't normally read comics and you see one that's $10, yeah, you know what? I can pick that up. That's oftentimes less than the cost of a book, and you get a really nice thick book for that $10. $15, there may be more of a hesitation, and people may not want to pick it up as quickly. But I do also think that there is a difference in the approach that Marvel and DC have taken to what stories they're going to release. So if you look in the order of release for the DC Compact Comics, start with Batman, Watchmen, Superman, more Batman, Wonder Woman. Like the big three are right there in the first 6 releases. And then you have the Joker, who of course is really popular. And then you start getting to some of the less popular characters, but you've started off with great story runs, but also story runs of your most popular characters and story runs that are known comic stories. And I do think that makes a difference, that these are things that people really love, and they love as comics. They've heard about these comics and they want to find out about them. Or if you just want to read some Batman comics, these are great Batman stories to start reading. You know, that whole cliche of, well, you know, if I want to read Batman, where should I start? These are great stories to start with. But if you look at the choices that Marvel's made in terms of what books they've decided to release or what stories they've decided to release, it's a much different story, I think. It feels like their stories are much more movie focused. Daredevil, Born Again, you know, you can watch that on Netflix. Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet, about Wakanda. Captain America, Winter Soldier, which of course, you know, everybody associates that with the movie. Civil War, and even Old Man Logan. Again, that was absolutely a movie that a lot of people saw, a very good movie. And same thing, Hawkeye, Life as a Weapon. That's really a lot. The TV series is based a lot on that. Now, there's much, much more depth to this. You know, there's a lot more than what made it in the TV series. That's to be expected. But I think too many people associate these with the movies now, not with the comic runs. And I think Marvel was kind of going, oh, I really like that movie. I'm going to pick up this book, you know, kind of a novelization of the movies. But I don't think that is where people's heads are. I think they're seeing these and they're seeing them as, well, I've seen the movie. Why would I want to read the comic book? And that's wrong. Like, I don't think that that's an approach people should take, but I do think that's the reality. So you have that combination of a 50% higher price than the DC books, but also trying to sell people who maybe really enjoyed the movie on going back and reading the comic books. And I've talked about this before. So many people who love the IP, who love the, who love the movies and everything, will come up to you at a con and say, well, I don't read comics. And that can be incredibly frustrating for those of us who are fans of the medium of comics, but it's just the reality of the world that we live in. But the other thing that I want to point out is that where DC led with the big Trinity, Marvel, where's your Spider-Man stories, right? Like, Spider-Man still regularly is one of the top selling, if not the top selling comics every month, and their graphic novels for Spider-Man do really well. Why aren't you making a Spider-Man in this format, because that is something that would probably sell really well. And maybe the thought is they don't want to they don't want to eat into the regular graphic novel sales or the comic sales or whatever. But if you're trying to make a go of this, you need to lead with the big guns. And yes, we as comics lovers love Daredevil, we love Captain America, Spider-Man, right? Spider-Man is the thing that sells. When the next Spider-Man movie comes out, it will probably, despite all of Marvel's other troubles, will still make $1 billion. Captain America doesn't do that. Again, I love Captain America, but his movies didn't do as well as some of the other Marvel movies. Even the Fantastic Four, like, one of the founding Marvel families, didn't do as well as Superman did. So I think you need to lead with Spider-Man. You need to lead with the X-Men. You need to lead with the characters that people know and love if you're going to make this successful. And maybe the sales that they are getting are enough for them to feel like they're successful, but it doesn't feel like they've taken the right approach. And I talked to a few comic shop owners when as I was doing research for this, and they kind of all said the same thing. The DC compact comics, when they land, they do really well. Marvel Premiere, they're quickly moved off the shelves over into the into sort of the other rack with the rest of the with the rest of the graphic novels, because there just isn't as much interest in this particular collection of Marvel. And that's a shame, because I do think it'd be great if more people were to get into these stories and hear these stories. I think Marvel just has to figure out how to do the marketing a little bit better. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Marvel Premiere Collection. I do really like this Hawkeye collection. I didn't read most of the original stories, so it was nice to see it all collected. And I hope more people do pick this up, because I think Hawkeye is a fascinating character. What are your thoughts? My biases are known. I am much more of a DC person than a Marvel person, and I'm much more of an indie comic person than either DC or Marvel. But maybe I'm off base. So what do you think about why the Marvel Premiere Collection isn't doing as well as the DC Compact Comic Collection, and consistently hasn't? Anyway, this has been Alan Liska with Green Archer Comics. Keep reading comics, especially indie comics, and I'd appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe and all those other good things. Thank you all very much, and I will talk to you again soon.